Hey everyone, this is January 2018. It is the Coffee with the Geek program. And I am your host, Andy Wheelock. And with me today is Rich Czyz. And Rich is, let me just go through some of his accomplishments. You've worn quite a few hats, which is very familiar to me with a lot of the interviews I do. But you are presently a principal in New Jersey. You are the co-founder of the 4 O'Clock Faculty blog, which is where I think I really came in touch with you, and that is kind of co-edited with Trevor Bryan. You're a former fifth grade teacher, basic skills teacher. I'm a former fifth grade teacher myself. Instructional coach, supervisor, director in curriculum and instruction. So those are all your past gigs. You are presently the author of the 4 O'Clock Faculty, a rogue. It's a great word. A road guide to revolutionizing professional learning. We're going to talk about that. And you have a passion for modeling and implementing innovative strategies to help learners and teachers improve every day. So, Rich, thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
And you're not a coffee drinker, so I'm going to have to drink my coffee alone here. But I've got my old mug from the NiceGate conference. They had some fabulous mugs a few years ago. NiceGate is my ISTE affiliate, so a shout out to them, as always. But Rich, let's dig right into kind of your work, because and again, this happens with pretty much most of the people that I interview. It seems like there are these kind of wonder teachers that do so much, and I'm always fascinated by when you fit in just kind of some personal time during your day. But tell me about just your role as principal, and how do you kind of fit in that with the things you're doing as an innovative leader?
Sure. So I am currently a principal of a second and third grade building in southern New Jersey, and it's amazing. I love being in the building with students and teachers on a daily basis. My previous life, I was on the curriculum end. So I was a supervisor and director of curriculum, but I felt like the piece that I was missing was that connection with students every day. So now, I drive into work. I love it. I get the chance to go into classrooms every day, see what students are doing, see what they're working on, sit down, talk with them, find out what their passions are, find out what they're learning, what they want to learn about. And, a lot of times there are some fires that come up during the day. So it's a lot of putting out fires in dealing with any number of things. We had a power outage last Friday for about an hour and a half, and trying to figure out how to serve lunch while we're dealing with the power outage. But really just making sure that those students want to come running into that building every day because it is the best part of their day. In terms of managing that with everything else, I'll say I get up pretty early in the morning. I stay up pretty late at night, and try to squeeze in as much of those things, along with family time as well, and just trying to make sure that I'm hitting on all cylinders.
That kind of dovetails nicely into your blog and the work you've done there. I was, checking it out before we came on, and it's a really nice kind of platform to connect, but also really kind of some great ideas that'll hopefully help teachers and maybe help learners and be problem solvers along the way. But can you talk about your blog is certainly a powerful piece of how you reach out to people. Twitter is another one, and you are R Czyz on Twitter. So
R.A. Czyz.
Yeah, R.A. Czyz, sorry. And can you tell me about kind of the process you go through for your blog and through your social media presence? What are your kind of goals? Who are you trying to reach out to? That sort of thing?
Sure. So our initial tagline, when Trevor and I were kind of coming up with the idea for the blog, was for educators who are looking to improve learning for themselves and for students. And, that's really what we're trying to do. We had sat down and we talked a lot about sharing, what we were doing, collaborating with others, but really trying to put out an important message about learning and how students should learn and how teachers should really continue their learning. The blog kind of has developed. Initially, I remember writing, 1,500, 1,700 word posts, and I would post them, and 6 or 7 people would see it. And over time, what happened was, really inspired by Seth Godin and his work, knowing that sometimes 10 words or 20 words, if it's a powerful message, would really suffice. And over time, the blog has really kind of developed. And I think, has my voice has really developed over the time that I've been doing the blog. But we really just try to share out the important messages that we believe about education. Is really, making sure that students are having the opportunity to be creative, that they're able to be passionate about what they're learning, talking a lot about the process and what's going on with the learning process, but really kind of sharing those messages with teachers, giving them some ideas for how to improve in their classroom, giving them some ideas, flexible seating as an idea to kind of, change up what's happening in our classrooms and really improve what we're doing with teaching and learning.
Can you talk a little bit about the blog and kind of the maybe the inspiration behind it? What was the, get the camera going back here, and maybe your partnership with Trevor?
Yeah, so Trevor and I were colleagues in a school district in New Jersey. I had started as a brand new teacher in a building. It was a brand new building. We were both hired in that building. Trevor had a few years experience at the time as an art teacher, but he was being hired in a new district. I was new to teaching overall. And we kind of ended up, at the time, the district used to do a bus tour of town. And so on one of our first days when we were hired, Trevor and I ended up sitting next to each other on the bus, and really just kind of connected from there. And then he ended up being my students. I was a 5th grade teacher. He ended up being my students' art teacher. So we really just kind of connected over kind of that shared inspiration for, continuous learning and really trying to innovate with what we were doing. So we kind of went down a million different paths in terms of working on different projects together. One of the earliest things that kind of led us down this road and into the idea of connecting using technology, Trevor was actually scheduled for 18 straight weeks of jury duty. And it ended up being every Thursday, and he was missing his Thursday class for more than an entire marking period. So what we ended up doing was just kind of messing around with it was a flip camera at the time, and just filming his lessons for the 18 weeks so that he could still connect with the students. And the substitute would just come in and share his video with them, and then they would work on the project. But it was just kind of that idea of trying things out and seeing what works. And, eventually over time, we decided to share some of that information via the blog. I eventually moved on from that district, but we still connect all the time and share via Twitter and Voxer and on the phone, almost every day. And, really just trying to collaborate and get some of those ideas out there.
Do you find blogging to be therapeutic in a sense, maybe thought-provoking in a sense? How does it enhance your kind of own professional development or learning?
Yeah, absolutely. It is one of those things where it's almost I like the word therapeutic that you just used, but it's almost a reflective process for me, where I am at any given time, I can kind of look back and see what I was thinking at any moment in time. So if I said, what was going on in November of 2016, there's a blog post that's talking about how I was kind of feeling at the time. But it really does allow me to kind of reflect and think about what's working or not working. A lot of times I will share things that are working, but there are some times when, for whatever reason, I've had an awful day, nothing but discipline issues in the office, dealing with students, and, for whatever reason, the day didn't go well. And then coming home and just writing about all of that really kind of allows you to let it go and think about, going back the next day and making a difference. And And I think that is something that has helped. And, we're at the point now, we try to post about 4 posts per week, Monday through Thursday. And on Fridays, we usually share a kind of a flashback for Flashback Friday. And, we're up over 500 posts now, but it is just kind of a collection of what I was thinking at any given time. And it is a therapeutic piece where, I'll write something about how I was feeling, and, people respond to that, which is an amazing thing.
So now let's transition to your book. What was the genesis of the book? Tell us a little bit more about the book.
Yeah, so initially I had written a couple of posts for the blog with regard to professional development and professional learning. And I really had a couple of experiences as an educator that kind of set me on this path for being passionate about professional development and making it not traditional. And, I had one as a teacher where I was kind of forced into, as a math and science teacher, I was forced into a literacy-based year-long program, learning about a writing rubric. And I felt as if at the time I wasn't getting a lot out of it. And so, one of the pieces that I always try to talk about is whether that professional learning is meaningful and relevant to the people who are sitting in that room. And so I wrote a couple of early blog posts with regard to professional development. And from there, just tried to change how I was doing things. So at the time, I was a director of curriculum and instruction. I was responsible for planning professional development for about 350 instructional staff members, and really just thinking about ways to improve that professional development process and learning for them. And that's really where the book was kind of born out of, was those initial blog posts, and really trying to share that message of meaningful and relevant PD.
If you could give maybe, without giving, the main premises of the book, but can you give kind of some key bulleted what makes good professional development? And I ask that out of, the utmost curiosity, being a professional developer myself.
Yeah. So number one, I think it does have to be meaningful and relevant to the participants. Number two is really taking advantage of the time that we have. And that's a big piece, is we don't have a lot of time for professional development. So really honoring and valuing that time that we do have. I've sat through way too many staff meetings where someone is sharing a list of things that could be sent in an email. But really trying to inspire teachers to take charge of their own professional learning. And I think for years that has been the biggest issue with PD is, we often assume that it is somebody else's responsibility to help us learn professionally, whereas I believe it is the responsibility of every educator that they really take charge of their own professional learning.
It's a good way to think about that. And I think, choice, I think, as well, is giving a pathway to go.
Yeah, that choice is a good piece too. It's really helping teachers to kind of see what's out there, see what they may be missing. I know even helping teachers who may not necessarily be connected educators, helping them to kind of connect via Twitter or Vox or whatever social media it may be, but really kind of showing people what's out there. I think a lot of times we kind of silo ourselves in our classrooms, and if we're not connecting with other educators, we may not necessarily know what's possible. And I think that's one of the big things is with professional development. Let's show other educators what's possible out there.
Yeah, I just was reading one of Trevor's posts, was kind of done in a poem format about being uncomfortable, and sometimes you have to be uncomfortable in that uncomfortable spot before you learn. So I think being challenged as well is another kind of feature, I think, of good quality development, without making it too uncomfortable, but
absolutely
uncomfortable enough to.
Yeah, there's a great visual that I like to share via Twitter, which shows your comfort zone, and where great things happen is always out of your comfort zone. And it's important that sometimes we do stretch ourselves to kind of learn something new, or to see things differently for students. And I think that's what I always try to go back to is let's get that learning improved because it matters, right? What we do matters on a daily basis. And if I'm going to teach the same, year, and I believe Don Wettrick said this, but if I'm going to teach that same year 20 times in a row, my students certainly aren't going to learn.
Do you think that that's part of the notion of rogue? Maybe tell me a little bit about the word rogue and why you chose that.
Sure. So rogue is actually an acronym. There is a chapter in the book that does talk about rogue learning, and rogue stands for a relevant, organized group of underground educators. And it is kind of in that rogue spirit that sometimes you're not going to get exactly what you need in terms of professional learning from those around you. And that may be your administrators, that may be your colleagues who are stopping you from getting what you need. And as I said before, it is your responsibility as an educator to go out and get what you need. And I think that's where that rogue spirit comes from. Sometimes you have to go underground. Sometimes you have to find those people who are going to help you grow. And it may not be your administrator, right? Sometimes they're tasked with a lot more than just making sure that you grow as a professional. It may not be your colleagues, but it may be, somebody via Twitter. It may be somebody in another school who's in the same town. So it's really finding what I like to call your rogue friends, finding out who those people are going to, continue to stretch your thinking and help you grow, and really moving forward and collaborating with them.
All right. Well, now it is time for kind of the Speed Geek questions. I usually put this on my blog. If you ever want to play along, it's on the Coffee with a Geek blog. Just go to the geeky fun section. So I'm going to spin the wheel here, and we'll try and get through 3 to 5 questions. They used to be kind of short answer, but if you want to elaborate on them, sometimes I think we get some good. So I'm going to spin the wheel here. Here goes number 1.
All right.
I don't know if you can hear that. And this is, wow, that's loud. What's your favorite tablet?
Favorite tablet? So I used to be strictly an iPad mini guy until my children broke it. And then I'm now using a Chromebook. So I have an HP Chromebook that is kind of my tool of choice.
All right. Chromebooks are nice, aren't they? And I'm pretty much followed in line with what you did. I was an iPad person through and through, and then Chromebooks are turning. But I will say that the iPad, my original iPad, I got one of the first versions of the iPad, and that thing is still going.
Yeah,
my son uses it.
Yeah, we have one on there, and it's it's like nothing but a game hub for my kids. But there's like 600 games on there, and the thing won't die.
I know, it keeps going, keeps going. All right, so our second one here. Besides students, what or who inspires you?
So I always try to bring in outside ideas to education. So I love reading things that are not necessarily education based and trying to apply those to what we do in education. The blog idea in and of itself was really inspired by a website called Grantland, which was a sports and pop culture website a few years back that I used to read. I love reading Seth Godin and his daily blog posts to kind of find out what he's thinking and see if that can inspire me. And then really bringing other ideas into education. So I'm a huge fan of Disney and Pixar, and really try to bring those customer service ideals from Disney and some of the kind of creative ideas from Pixar into education as well. So really trying to find other authors or, whether it's a marketing person, guru, bring some of those ideas into education.
Yeah, I love that you brought up Pixar because, I too have kind of a fascination with, just a company that makes these great movies. They have a real simple mission of just creating, the whole family, and, they do such an amazing job. And, I had the fortunate coincidence to interview, one of the art people from Pixar, and her name is escaping me, which is, I'll remember as soon as I stop the tape here. But she had talked about how basically, you know, the collaborative spirit experience that goes on at Pixar is really, to me, it stood right out to me as the High School Musical, you know, and we were just talking before we came on about how we often leave kind of art there. And I think the High School Musical is one of the most essential parts of any high school kid's career. And I tell my own kids, you must do a High School Musical. And you can pick so many different roles, whether it's, you know, cast, crew. There's just so many great, you know, experiences that go with a High School Musical. Can you maybe elaborate a little more on that?
Yeah. And I think, you know, unfortunately, there are a lot of things that were in our curriculum, you know, that have kind of been pushed aside in terms of art and music and really creative ventures for students that, you know, kids learn a lot from those things because a lot of times it is, you know, whether it's imaginative play in preschool or all the way up to the High School Musical, there are things that students are engaged in and passionate about. And we actually tried something last year, which we're going to be getting ready to do again in our school. We called it the Hour of Possibility. And it was kind of a genius hour type idea. But what we asked was our teachers to find something that they were passionate about and to offer it up to students. So we did 1 hour where we had our teachers present anything that they might have been passionate about. We had one teacher who was passionate about Disney and animation, so they did a whole hour-long session on animation. We had another teacher who was really into baking and cake decorating, so she did an hour-long session on cake decorating. And we had each of our students sign up for one of the sessions, and it turned out to be an amazing experience for our students. We had one student who, you know, ended up being amazing at cake decorating, and he never knew he had that skill until we kind of showed him what was possible. So I believe a lot of those different experiences that students might have can really help in that regard.
Yeah, good point. Danielle Feinberg was who I interviewed. She's the director of lighting for Pixar.
Okay,
I
that's
asked her
awesome.
her favorite character, and she said WALL-E. So go out and see the movie WALL-E if you haven't
Okay,
seen it.
that's an amazing one.
It is. All right, so your next one here, and we'll maybe go with 2 more here. Are you a gamer, and what's your game?
So I used to be a gamer a long time ago. So I started with the Nintendo Entertainment System, you know, back in the 80s and early 90s. And at the time, my game of choice was Baseball Stars, which was a baseball simulator, but it was one of the first games to actually keep season-long stats. So baseball was kind of my thing growing up. That was my my game of choice at the time. The last system that I have played on a regular basis was probably the PlayStation 1. So, you know, it's been a long time since I've gamed. And even there, MLB 99 and MLB 2000, I think were the last 2 games that I played on a regular basis. So it's been a long time since I've gamed.
We have pretty much the same trajectory on that. Yeah, once kids came along, the gaming left, but PlayStation was my last one, and sports and Call of Duty were my my favorites.
Okay.
All right, let's go with 1 more.
Sure.
See if we can get a good one. I turned the sound off. It was pretty loud. Okay, this is one we talked about. Your first storage device.
So my first storage device was the 3.5-inch diskette. So, you know, I've been around a little while, not quite cassette tapes, but it's been a while. So,
well, it kind of gives you an idea of where you are on the tech scale, as far as, you know, that the whole evolution of technology. And, you know, back when our grandparents could say, you know, I used to walk to school. You know, we say I used to get my data on a cassette tape or a floppy. They have no idea how life has changed.
Yeah, even I think about the students that I see now who are 7 and 8-year-olds, and the fact that they will never, you know, save anything anywhere, and it'll all still be there for them is amazing. So
it is. All right, Rich, thank you so much for your time. I'm looking forward to reading the book. It is on my to-do read list. It's that list has gotten so big over the holidays. I got a lot of books and a lot of good reading. So I can't wait to read your book. A lot of great ideas. And I'm going to keep following you on Twitter and keep following your blog, because you're doing really great stuff, but inspiring stuff, which is a real tribute to you. And keep up the great work.
That's awesome. And if I could, what I would like to do for anybody who's still listening, I have a copy of the book I'd like to give away. So anybody who wants to tweet at me right now, at RACZYZ, first person to send me a tweet will get the book. So I'll mail that out to him. All
right, cool. I will let me know who gets the book.
I will.
All right. Thanks, Rich.
All right. Thanks, Andy. Take care.